Good morning, everyone. Bonjour à tous. It's great to be here in Calgary, what seems like my home away from home, for the opening of this Global Energy Show. I understand this is the largest edition of this conference yet, especially with regards to this year's international presence. So first, I'd like to say to our international guests who traveled here to join us, welcome to Canada. Bienvenue au Canada. Your presence is a testament to something our Prime Minister has identified succinctly over the last year. Canada has what the world wants, and we want to share it with our allies around the world. As Canada's Minister of Energy and Natural Resources, I'm proud to tout a few statistics to make this point. As we all know, Canada has abundant energy, the fourth largest proven oil reserves in the world, representing 10% of the world's global reserves. More than 97% of that is right here in Alberta's oil sands. We export 80% of our 5 million barrels per day of production to our allies, and I expect that percentage to grow. We are the world's fifth largest natural gas producer. We have nearly 1,370 trillion cubic feet of marketable natural gas reserves across this country, enough to last hundreds of years at current production. We export almost half, that's 50% of our production to our allies. And as we ramp up our LNG industry, this percentage will also rise. We are a Tier 1 nuclear nation. We are a leader in carbon capture and storage. We are the fourth largest producer of renewable electricity in the world. But we have more. We have one of the world's best workforces. We have world-class companies. We have the ability to ship our products via 3 oceans, with a commitment to leveraging that into new trade deals and relationships around the world, with over 20 economic and security deals signed with our allies on 5 continents in 12 months by our Prime Minister Carney so far. Finally, we have democratic stability, a strong respect for the rule of law, and a government committed to regulatory streamlining, predictable permitting, and focused on how we build, not whether we will build. All of this means that in a moment that feels uncertain and volatile, the world increasingly trusts Canada. You don't have to take my word for it. A few weeks ago, the executive director of the International Energy Agency, Fatih Birol, visited Canada and said the same thing. This trust, as Dr. Birol said, gives Canada a golden opportunity. He said, I quote, "When I look at the world, the energy-hungry world, it needs Canada more than ever," end quote. This gives us an extraordinary hand of geopolitical cards, a hand we can use for ourselves and our allies around the world to achieve strategic autonomy when they need it and when Canada needs it most. But Canada's great hand of geopolitical cards only matters if we actually play those cards. Ladies and gentlemen, energy does not make us prosperous when it's sitting in the ground. Energy and resources don't strengthen our sovereignty if we can't move them to market. Clean electricity does not attract investment if we cannot connect it with where the demand is growing. Expeditiously and responsibly developing our energy and natural resources is the task and opportunity before us. And it's a big task. It's a hard task. But it's why Prime Minister Carney's government has spent the past year relentlessly focused on ambition, on discipline, and most of all, delivery. The Major Projects Office, headquartered right here in Calgary, is at the center of that work. It replaces years of permitting and regulatory uncertainty with a single window, with clear timelines, as well as accountability and coordination across government dedicated to getting major nation-building projects built. It is about building responsibly, but also building decisively. We now have referred 15 projects and 7 new transformational strategies to the Major Projects Office. These represent over $126 billion in new investment for Canada. This is real nation-building investment, real projects, and real jobs for Canadians. It includes conventional energy like LNG Canada Phase 2 and Silicium LNG. It includes clean energy like Iqaluit Hydro and the Darlington New Nuclear Project, the first SMRs in the G7, as well as transmission projects like the North Coast Transmission Line. It sends a message. Canada is back as a serious energy country. Canada is back as a place to invest capital. And Canada is back as a country that intends to build big things again. That same approach is guiding our work with Alberta, especially through the Canada-Alberta Memorandum of Understanding, or the MOU. The Canada-Alberta MOU matters because it signals something simple but powerful. Canada and Alberta share a goal of becoming a clean and conventional energy superpower, a country that is prosperous on the road to net zero by 2050. Since we signed the agreement in November, we have moved from words to action. We have signed one project, one review agreements, less than 2 years after our respective governments fought about the exact same thing in the Supreme Court. We reached an agreement in principle on methane equivalency so we can effectively tackle the most polluting, cheapest to reduce emissions. And perhaps most importantly, we have established a carbon market that works, an effective market that will give investors the long-term certainty needed to move major projects forward, develop Canada's energy industry, and help meet net zero emissions by 2050. We are now charting the path forward on other elements of the MOU. The Pathways Project, and yes, a 1 million barrel per day new pipeline for access to Asian markets. New renewable electricity interties, a framework for AI data centers, and new nuclear energy development for Alberta. This cooperative federalism in action is what Canadians expect from their governments. And together, Canada and Alberta are building one of the world's greatest energy superpowers. The MOU is a key part of our government's plan to recognize a simple fact. Conventional energy is critical to domestic and international energy systems and will remain so for years to come. The oil sands are one of the greatest industrial achievements in Canadian history. They transformed Alberta. They transformed Canada. They created prosperity that has been felt in every province and territory across this great country. And they gave our country a strategic asset that very few democracies possess: a massive, secure, responsibly regulated energy supply. In today's world, that is not something to apologize for. It is something to build upon. Amidst an energy crisis touching every corner of the world, the question is not whether our allies need oil and gas from countries they can trust. The question is whether the energy will come from Canada, developed responsibly, in partnership with Indigenous peoples, creating good jobs for our workers, and generating revenue that we can use to pay for the public services we care about, or whether it will come from places that don't share our values. I believe the answer should be Canada. That's why accelerating our LNG export potential is so important. For decades, Canada had the natural gas, the geography, and the workers and the expertise. What we did not have is access to global markets from our own Canadian ports. Canada's new government, under the leadership of Prime Minister Mark Carney, is changing that. Last summer, LNG Canada shipped its first cargo, opening a new era of Canadian energy exports. The facility continues to ramp up production and has already shipped 80 cargoes to our allies around the world. Silesium LNG, one of the next projects in the pipeline, is an important example of what comes next. It's a $30 billion plus Indigenous-led project with emissions 94% below the global average. In fact, its best-in-class carbon intensity means that as LNG from silesium displaces higher-emitting fuels in Asia, it could help the planet avoid 9 to 14 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions every year. To put that in perspective, that is roughly the equivalent of over 2.6 million homes' energy use for a year. It is the equivalent to removing nearly 3 million cars off the road for a year, or to reducing the emissions produced by burning over 14 million pounds of coal. And yesterday, following last month's announcement of Canada's first long-term LNG offtake deal with CEFE, a German state-owned energy company, Silesium LNG announced a new letter of intent for offtake with Uniper, one of Europe's largest energy providers. Once the deal is finalized and Silesium starts shipping, this could see Canadian LNG delivered not only to customers in Germany, but also to new Uniper customers in Sweden, Netherlands, and the UK. Silesium also shows what reconciliation with First Nations can look like in practice. It places the leadership of the Nisga'a Nation, led by President Eva Clayton, at the center of development. I believe President Clayton is here today, and I want to recognize that she has been a remarkable leader, not only for her nation and for this project, but that her leadership has strengthened British Columbia and Canada as a whole. It is something we can all aspire to as we prosecute Prime Minister Carney's Build agenda, reminding ourselves that building Canada strong for all means building Canada strong with and for Indigenous peoples. This morning's announcement of Silesium signing a contribution agreement with Metlakatla, the Lakwalam, and the Gitgala First Nations is a testament to inclusive, solutions-oriented development. These agreements show that when governments, proponents, and Indigenous communities engage seriously in good faith, we can find solutions that benefit everyone. They show that in 2026, we can and should go beyond consultation and invest in real, meaningful partnerships with Indigenous peoples. The Sunrise Pipeline expansion in British Columbia is another good example of what great partnerships with First Nations look like. The expansion will add up to 300 million cubic feet per day of additional natural gas transportation capacity, ensuring energy security for homes and industry in BC as they build major projects, including new LNG facilities. It is expected to add more than $3 billion to Canada's GDP. It is expected to generate over $700 million in tax revenues and create 2,500 jobs at peak construction. Last year, the first Indigenous loan guarantee issued under our new federal program supported 36 nations in buying a 12.5% stake in that pipeline system. That means that nations will not only benefit from the more than $52 million Enbridge has spent so far hiring and procuring services from Indigenous businesses, but also from ongoing wealth generation that turns into sustainable prosperity for communities to invest in themselves. That is what practical, positive nation building looks like for a country that is a true conventional energy superpower, committed to building with Indigenous peoples. The Pathways project is also critical to ensuring Canada's oil sector continues to grow. If Canada can achieve a step change in the carbon intensity of one of the world's largest oil-producing regions, that will be a global achievement. It will show that energy production and emission reduction can move forward together. Premier Smith has called the Pathways project something that can future-proof our oil industry, and we agree. This represents the practical middle ground Canada can occupy in this world. We cannot pretend the world no longer needs oil and gas. We know it does. And we cannot pretend emissions don't matter. We know they do. The countries that will succeed will be the ones that both produce the energy the world needs and reduce the emissions associated with producing it. The countries that succeed amidst this moment of global uncertainty will also not be the ones who choose only one form of energy. That's why our government is looking at a pragmatic, all-of-the-above approach in doubling our electricity grid by 2050. This is the opportunity for Canada and Alberta behind our national energy strategy. In May, we released a vision paper outlining how your new federal government is thinking about expanding our national electricity grids in a way that maintains reliability, centers it on affordability, and propels sustainability. We're now consulting on these ideas with provinces and territories, who hold the ultimate jurisdiction over the electricity system, as well as consulting with Indigenous peoples, utilities, labor, industries, and more. Canada already has one of the cleanest electricity systems in the world. But if we're serious about growth, we need much more electricity. We will need it for homes, ports, data centers, manufacturing, electric vehicles, carbon capture, and new projects that have not yet FID'd. Canada has been a nuclear energy for generations. And our homegrown CANDU reactors have provided reliable, non-emitting power for customers in Ontario and Quebec. Now, as we embark on a major nuclear build-out that may include not only Ontario and New Brunswick, but Alberta and Saskatchewan, nuclear energy will play a significant role in providing the clean electricity that heavy industry, data centers, manufacturing, and growing communities will require. Under the Canada-Alberta MOU, Canada and Alberta have committed to work together on a nuclear generation strategy by January 1st, 2027. That matters because investment, including in data centers, as prioritized in our AI strategy our government released last week, is increasingly going where electricity is abundant, reliable, and clean. So if we want next-generation technology investment here in Alberta or across the country, we know we need to provide the electricity system to support it. That is also why renewable energy matters. Premier Smith's commitment made under the MOU to bring more renewables to Alberta is welcome. We know Alberta has been the most aggressive developers of renewables over the last many years. Alberta has world-class wind and solar resources, an entrepreneurial energy sector, and a track record of attracting private capital. Like many provinces in Canada, there are huge opportunities for solar and wind projects that will bring more affordable electricity to homes and businesses while creating jobs for Albertans and for Canadians. Ladies and gentlemen, the key is to avoiding pitting one energy source against another. Our vision is to see provinces and territories build a connected Canadian electricity system that uses natural gas, carbon capture, nuclear potential, and renewable resources. We want to do that to create one of the most competitive energy jurisdictions in the world. to support interties that will connect our country, balance loads, and allow each province and territory to focus on what works best for them. And we want to keep prices low for Canadians as we transition to net zero by 2050. This also matters for our goal of catalyzing massive amounts of new private sector investment in Canada, something I'm very hopeful that the people in this room will be part of. A company deciding where to build its next plant, its next data center, its next facility or industrial project is going to ask basic questions. Is there power available? Is it reliable? Is it affordable? Is it clean? Can the project get permitted? Can the infrastructure get built? Canada's answer to every one of these questions is yes. In conclusion, whether we're speaking about clean and conventional energy, Canada's permitting regime, the investment environment we're creating, or our role as a supplier of global markets, the larger point is this. We all know energy policy is now economic policy. It is security policy. It is trade policy. It is investment policy. The world is not waiting for Canada, but Canada is not waiting either. We're rising to the moment. And as Prime Minister Carney says, in a time of crisis, fortune favors the bold. So we are building boldly. Capital is moving here. Projects are being approved. Customers are coming here. Allies are looking for partners, and we are putting up our hands. But ladies and gentlemen, government can't do this alone. The government's job is to create the conditions, clear rules, faster decisions, stronger partnerships, credible standards, and investor confidence that Canada is serious about building big. The private sector's role is then to build. So my message to companies and investors here today is simple. Look at Canada as a place to invest and build. Look at our resource base, our workforce, our project pipeline, our Indigenous partnerships that work, and the markets opening in Europe and Asia to our products. Look at the demand for renewable, low-carbon energy. Look at the infrastructure we are building to reach the world. And then bring your capital here. Bring your technology here. And bring your ambition here. To our international friends in the room, my message is also simple. Partner with us. Build with us. Canada can be a supplier you need in a volatile world. We are reliable. We are democratic. We have abundant resources. We are expanding production and trade infrastructure, and we're doing it while advancing Indigenous reconciliation and reducing emissions. The world needs what Canada has, and Canada understands we need the prosperity that our energy and natural resources, properly developed, can create. Over the course of your time in Calgary, I hope you see that Canada is once again open for business, looking to leverage its advantages with partners across this country and around the world. Opportunities like the one we have in this moment don't come often. So when it's now or never, Canada chooses now. Please join us. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Have a great conference.